You would give so much anxiety to the people that have to have everything planned.
Oh, hey, absolutely, dude. I can't sum up in a paragraph or a short conversation what 5 months of being in one of the coolest places in the world is. You know, it's wildlife photog media because of the life that I live. It's a wild life.
Have you ever had any near-death experiences? How many drones have you gone through? What do your taxes look like?
Oh, buddy.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the SCHEELS Outdoors podcast. We are joined by Keagan Keddell, Wildlife Photog Media. If you want to follow him on Instagram or YouTube, he is a photographer, videographer, you could call him an influencer, just kind of a fly by the seat of his pants kind of guy. Great conversation, super entertaining, and you're going to really enjoy this one. All right, Keagan, explain yourself. As in, like, give us an introduction.
What did you do?
Who is Keagan? The man behind the camera.
Yeah, I'm just another traveling photographer, chasing critters and adventures and whatever cool people I get to tag along with around the country, from, you know, duck season to elk to whitetails to turkeys to fishing in Alaska and pretty much everywhere in between. So I'm originally from Wisconsin, born and raised, and started traveling for a living in 2018 as the fly fishing guide. I was up in Alaska. I had guided out of high school and got into guiding up in Alaska, started traveling then, and then eventually that's being in Alaska for a couple of years got me into photography full time in 2020. So it's been 4 years now of full time running all over the darn country and taking pictures and filming stuff and getting to hang out with some pretty neat people along the way.
You said guiding out of high school. Was that in Wisconsin then you were guiding?
Yeah. So I started running on the salmon boats on Lake Michigan, and then ice fishing in the wintertime.
Oh, sweet.
Very nice.
So,
And then what part of Alaska were you in?
I was out in Bristol Bay, so Southwest Alaska.
Sure.
2 years I was in kind of more western Bristol Bay out of Dillingham. We were 80 miles north of there. And then my second 2 years, I was in Katmai National Park, which is, you've ever seen the bear stand on top of the waterfall catching the salmon? Mm-hmm. That's where I lived, within a mile of that falls for 2 years. And I was head guide there. So
how does one become a guide in Alaska right out of high school, basically?
You know, it sounds much harder than it is. Turns out now you can just go on the internet and start looking up jobs like anything else. Mm-hmm. When I went up there in 2018, it was a little bit harder. There was I tried Googling stuff and figuring it out, and it pretty much I found a guide school in Montana, that talking to them, they kind of helped with that job placement. You know, they kind of set people up, or outfitters would call them looking for new applicants. So I went to that guide school and ended up getting hired by the company that ran that guide school to run one of their lodges. Oh. So I went and guided there for a couple of years. So I got pretty fortunate, and, you know, the requirements to be able to guide up there really aren't too bad. You know, we needed a 6-pack, our Coast Guard license, because that's all Coast Guard waterways in Bristol Bay. And then it pretty much was just a want to work hard attitude, and you were in.
Oh.
That's super cool. To every person that's in the outdoor industry, I feel like that's like the ultimate job, like just guiding something that you would love to hunt or fish every day.
I think he's got the ultimate job.
You do. I mean, currently you live like the dream, basically. I'm living vicariously through your Instagram stories 24/7.
Oh, absolutely. So if anybody watching or listening to this right now is not following Keagan, aka Wildlife Photog Media, go ahead and pause this and do it right now.
Your days will get better.
Yes, exactly. Just fascinating. So just a little backstory how I got introduced to Keagan here. So we started a Thursday series, Dogs of SCHEELS. And he started tagging SCHEELS Outdoors with all these absolutely incredible dog pictures. Just like, I look into tag posts. Every day I'll look at tags, and, you know, it's like, okay, I'll use this for Trophy Tuesday on Tuesday. I'll use this for Dogs of SCHEELS on Thursday. And, you know, there was pretty much one in there every week from Mr. Keagan. And it was almost always the best one.
Yeah, the standout.
Yeah, just started getting to talking and then realizing his story. And it's it's pretty fascinating. You pretty much just fly by the seat of your pants and live out of a vehicle, or, you know, you don't know where you're going to be on a weekly basis. You know, we've tried to do this podcast for maybe 3 months now. Every time I'd schedule like the studio for a session, hey Keagan, you gonna be on a podcast? Yeah, I want to. Just let me know. I don't know where I'm gonna be. Might be in Alaska. I might be in Montana. I might be in Wisconsin. But yeah, glad to have finally nailed you down for this one.
Yeah, I think the last time we tried to do this, I was walking through the Minneapolis airport, and you called and asked if we were still on, and I was like, can we wait till after this flight lands?
Maybe.
Yeah. How many planes do you think you've been on this year so far?
Oh, buddy. I couldn't begin to do that math off the top of my head. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just flew up from Colorado a couple days ago to get here to Missoula, and I was originally in Arizona, but just decided to jump in with one of the guides that was in mule deer camp and drive to his house in Colorado because he was close to an airport. So had
like,
a little mid.
What was the reasoning that you did that? Like, obviously everything's very impromptu and stuff, and I'm sure you have stuff scheduled out way in advance too. But like, how do you just like decide to go do that? Like, what's the reasoning?
Well, I was supposed to leave mule deer camp and fly out of Phoenix, and instead of driving down to Phoenix early in the morning and having to sit there all day in the airport because my flight was at like 8 p.m., one of the guides was going back to his house in Durango. There's an airport in Durango. So I was like, hey, man, how about we just road trip together? I'll keep you entertained on your 7-hour drive. And then tomorrow morning, you just drop me off at the airport, and then I'll fly back to my truck.
There you go.
And he was like, yeah. So then I got to go drive through, you know, part of western Arizona or eastern Arizona that I really had no reason to be in. And then, you know, we drove through a corner of New Mexico, and then I was in Colorado. So
just more places to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just simple. So I've got a question for you. So like, you're in basically a different vehicle every time.
Yeah.
I see you. So do you have like 7 or 8 different like beater vehicles just in random parking lots in random states, or how does that work?
Kinda. Well, currently I have 3. Last week I had 4. I sold one of them in Alaska while I was on a mule deer stalk. So
Okay.
it was
Just
pretty
Facebook
fun
Marketplace.
coordinating that. Yeah. You know, I was 2,000 miles away while selling a vehicle. That was convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started, this would have been 3 years ago now. We were on a Western tour. The rest of the camera guys and I were kind of splitting up. We were all going to Utah, but where we were going was like 7 hours apart. So I had just we were in eastern Montana. I drove down to Billings. I bought a Suburban and then drove that to Utah the next day. You know, picked it up for like $2,200 or something, and was like, okay, well, this is not the brightest idea I've ever had. Let's drive through the middle of nowhere in a car that I just bought. So did that, and then I ended up driving that thing for a year and a half, and it just kind of worked out. And then it started kind of happening like that, where I'd be somewhere, you know, fly out, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm going to be here a little longer than I thought. Instead of renting something, let's just buy something, you know. And so I had 2 other Suburbans, the one that I just sold in Alaska, and then I've got another truck in Alaska, a little Ford Explorer. But, you know, spend a couple grand if I got to stick $1,000 into it for tires, or, you know, fix something goofy that really isn't a big deal. I can do that. And then I just kit it out with solar on the roof and get a power inverter and kind of the general like toolkit and off-road stuff. You know, it cost me another $700-800 to set it up, build a bed in the back, and off we go.
That is like the best case scenario ever. And plus, I mean, like if you're in Alaska a lot too, I mean, it makes sense to have something up there if you're going up there multiple times a year and don't want to rent something, because you probably pay more in renting something than just having something.
Oh yeah, I'd pay more in renting something for 3 days than it would cost me to build the whole thing out. And then I got to be nice to it, which isn't going to happen in a place like Alaska. Or
Taking
even
a
like
camera
here in
up the side hills
Montana
or something.
Yeah. It's, you know, last night I was up in the Lolo National Forest and we were on a bunch of Jeep trails, and it's just like, okay, if you've got to be nice to something in stuff like this, then you probably just don't belong there. So for me to have something that I don't care about, my grandpa told me when I was a little kid, if you buy a new car, hit it with a hammer so you don't care about the dents anymore.
There you go.
Well, if you buy a car with a bunch of dents, you don't care anyway.
Skip step one.
Nice. I love how you're running around in just the most random vehicles, and then you've got like $200,000 worth of camera gear all over the place.
Yeah, we try not to think about that part of it.
Yeah. Think about the fun, not the price tag.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many drones have you gone through?
Oh, buddy. I think I totaled 5 or 6 of them last year.
Sheesh.
Eek.
Yeah, that was pretty good. A few of them in Montana, one of them in Arkansas, and a couple intermixed along the way.
All you got to do it for the shot.
But that footage, though.
Well, if it works out, the footage is really good.
Uh-huh.
It's just when it doesn't work out, then the footage isn't quite as cinematic quality.
Right.
Still entertaining. But
Might make the bloopers instead.
So how does
Yeah.
that work? Do you still get the footage if the drone is gone?
If you find it, probably.
it depends on the scenario that it crashes.
Crashes in, yeah.
Yeah.
If it crashes while recording and the battery gets kicked out, because sometimes you can slam it hard enough that the battery will just pop out, then they don't record that clip, but you'll still have all the other stuff. If it's in water, it's kind of a 50-50 of the SD card getting corrupted. The more expensive SD cards are a little bit more durable, where like the cheap micro SD cards, those die pretty hard. So it just kind of depends.
And if you
Most
can
of the
recover
time,
it.
I get the footage back, and everything's good. But like he said, it's just a matter of finding it. The other day when I almost dumped one into the side of a cliff, like that one would have been kind of hard to get back. But we thankfully avoided that.
Yeah, that would be a leave it on the cliff situation, maybe.
Yeah, and like the one that I lost in Arkansas, that was in the middle of a flooded rice field.
Yeah, you might not be getting that back.
No, that I took the coordinates off my controller of where it was found last, because DJI updates that in the controller pretty heavy. And then I plugged those coordinates into Onyx, walked right out to it in the middle of this field, just looked down, it was like, a couple feet off.
No way.
Picked it
Nice.
up. Yeah.
That's
it was,
crazy. That's crazy.
So
Who knew?
what's,
Onyx was good for drone recovery.
yeah.
There you go. What were you going to say?
So what started this? You mentioned it, Alaska kind of kicked off your...
Yeah. So
adventure.
that's really what started this journey for me. I always loved hunting and fishing and grew up in it. When we were kids, we'd like film our hunts and that kind of thing. It was kind of just that era of, YouTube starting. We always did, but it was just like a joke. And, we had fun then and never really thought about it again. And then when I went to Alaska, I was on a volunteer fire department in Northeast Wisconsin, and then I had to step down from a bunch of committees. And it was kind of a big formal to do to step down from these committees, and I had to announce in front of the whole department, hey, I'm leaving for Alaska. And afterwards, a couple of the older guys came up to me, and they were like, good for you, man. Like, it's a big deal to get out of the county, and go like really do something. And that always stuck with me. And when I went up there that next summer and the summer after, I'd come home every year, and those guys on the department would be like, and friends and family too, but they'd just be like, how was it? What happened? Like, what'd you do? And I can't sum up in a paragraph or a short conversation what 5 months of being in one of the coolest places in the world is. I can't tell somebody about how many fish we caught one day or what a brown bear looks like at 15 yards. So I got a camera and started taking pictures to do that, to show all these people like, hey, this is what's happening. It's why I started the social media page that I have now, just to be able to show people like what my life was. It's Wildlife Photog Media because of the life that I live. It's a wild life, and that was what I wanted to show people and be able to tell, and mainly to friends and family. It spiraled kind of out of control when I decided to take the leap into doing this for a living. But that was really what it was. Alaska kind of kicked it all off. just trying to be able to tell people a better story than I could put into words.
When was like the transition point of like, because obviously your goal for that was to go up there and guide, right? That was the main goal. So like, when did that transition point happen to be like, okay, I'm guiding, but also like my priority has shifted a little bit more to like taking photos as well? Because obviously that's more of what you do now too, is like on the photo and production side of things.
For sure.
So like, when did that switch kind of happen?
You know, it was like during COVID, ironically enough, and that was just the timing. At the beginning of 2020, I had switched lodges. The first lodge I was at was the Royal Coachman. I was there for 2 years. And then when I went to work in Katmai at Brooks Lodge, conveniently, that was when I really started getting into photography. And then when I got there, I realized that I wasn't just guiding fishermen, that I was guiding a lot of photographers because of all the bears there. So then that kind of was a combo of me being able to guide fishing, guide photographers, and then really hone my skills, you know, taking pictures in adverse environments of critters that really don't want their picture taken and are like inherently not super easy to get up close to. And then, you know, they're back in shadows. They're a dark animal, you know, really learning how to use light and framing to make bears look interesting for 5 months of taking pictures instead of just taking the same shots, to be able to capture all those moments. And then I was still getting to guide and do all of that. And then that fall, I had come back and went to work down in Kansas for an outfitter, SCHEELS Outdoors, which is where Mike and I started connecting from pictures from that outfitter. And I went back to Alaska the following year, went back to Kansas for that next year. So that'd be 21 now in the fall. And I did the whole season in Kansas that year, and then signed a contract to go to a different lodge, got a call from a production company, and took the job to go work for the production company full time.
That's a long story. I like it.
That is a wild ride, for sure. Have you ever had any formal training on like photography, videography, or is it just learned through experience?
School by YouTube and
Trial by
making
fire.
lots of mistakes.
Yep.
I love it.
No, that's
awesome.
really a great way to do it. So a little bit off topic. What do your taxes look like? How do you even do that?
Nightmare is a good word.
You find a good tax accountant. And then
Yeah,
just
if
say,
anybody has a
"Here."
great accountant that they want to just come help my life, that'd be cool.
I got a guy in Duluth.
That's perfect. It doesn't matter where in the world.
You're right,
Might be
yeah.
there, yeah.
It really doesn't
He's really
matter.
into hunting, so yeah.
So when you were in Arkansas, was that like, were you in Arkansas and Alaska like in the same years? Just like one was more waterfowl oriented, one was fishing? Is that how that worked? Or,
Alaska and Kansas, yeah.
or sorry, not Arkansas, Kansas, yeah.
Yeah. So that was 2020 and 21. I was in both of those and was guiding and filming in both of those then.
Gotcha. And Kansas was it mainly waterfowl or was it big game stuff
Yeah,
too?
that's all it was.
Okay.
Just ducks and geese.
Cool. So where did
that
you
was
like,
kind of how oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, at that point in your life, like, where was your photography, and if you're doing video stuff at the same time, like, where was that all ending up? Like, was that going to somewhere? Was it strictly for yourself, for your social stuff? Was it for promotion for other companies? Like, what did you do with it after that then?
A lot of that was like my stuff in Alaska, that was all just for myself. You know, I'd give some to the lodge so they could use it wherever. But a lot of that was just me. And after the fact, I've sold a little bit of that as prints or whatever else, but not a ton. It was just kind of learning. And then I was pitching brands and trying to work with different companies at that time. Nothing was really working out. I just kept shooting, kept chasing and trying to figure it out. When I was in Kansas, a lot of that stuff ended up for the outfitter, you know, using on his social media, his marketing, helped him grow his business. And the couple years that I was with TKO, they're pretty much full time running his social medias and stuff. You know, we were able to get his business really expanding. You know, obviously he'd put a ton of work into it on the back end himself over a bunch of years, but that like surge in marketing, all of the clients that were coming in were seeing that and talking about it. And as soon as like I would meet them, they'd be like, holy cow, like this stuff's been great. And like that was kind of my like fuel to go, okay, we can continue to help outfitters, we can grab brands. And it just became a like building relationships over time. You know, it's not instant. it didn't matter how good I was or how bad I was. Like the building communication with brands, meeting the people behind the scenes and a lot of this stuff was how like I've gotten now, where I feel like I'm crazy busy all the time. But all I've done for 4 years, going on 5 years, whatever year it is just like I'm harping on companies and pitching projects. Can't tell you how many things I've pitched to Mike over the years of just like, hey, what about this? What about this? And I do that constantly as much as I possibly can, and then go to shows and go to different events and just show up on social media and be able to like be there for people if they need something. Yeah. And now it's kind of worked out, but it was a journey for sure.
Yeah. And that's one thing that's super cool about you too, is like, I've reached out to you on social media even before like this whole situation, but like you're super willing to like take questions from anybody, like just BS with somebody on DMs about an experience that you had or something like that. Like you're not above anything, right? Like you're the most down to earth random person eating meals out of the back of your car. Like it's just the way it is.
Yeah. For me, it was one of those, like when I was getting into all this and trying to learn, there wasn't like an outlet for it. There wasn't somebody that I could like ask. There wasn't really anything that had to do with hunting or directly outdoors related in photography and videography. There's some wildlife stuff. There's some people that do a really good job explaining cameras, set up for taking birds or, what have you. But there isn't really a huge like hunting market that I was finding at that time. Now there are a few, but that's always just something I've really tried to be, is like help to anybody that's looking, whoever it is. It's why I started teaching photography workshops. It's why I just started an apparel company called Cameras Don't Flare Birds. That's kind of where I want to be able to help the waterfowl photography, big game community just like come together, and hope to be able to mold that into a way that people can kind of just work together, and we can just continue to elevate that section of the community as much as the rest of it.
Yeah. Shows a lot about who you are as a person, to not like, obviously you produce super cool stuff. So like not to just keep that for yourself, but then be like, hey, anybody can do this. Like, this is what you need. This is how you do it. That's super cool.
Yeah. I mean, if I can I went to college for building cabinets. If I can figure out how to make a career out of taking pictures, like anybody should be able to do this.
For sure.
I love it.
Talk to us a little bit about how this whole Cameras Don't Flare Birds thing got started.
Yeah. So in the specifically more waterfowl photography industry, kind of how it meshes with outfitters and hunters, the joke with camera guys has always been that we'd get blamed for flaring birds or wrecking hunts or just kind of being the problem, when in reality, and granted there are some times, whatever,
no, never,
but most of the time it's something's messed up, but we're just the new thing involved in that. We show up and don't have a good rapport with a hunting group or an outfitter, and they don't really have that trust, and then we get blamed when things don't work right. So the joke through social media for the last few years is Cameras Don't Flare Birds. You kind of see it like hashtagged and stuff randomly. And then a couple of months ago, right before the Delta Waterfowl Expo, Buddy and I were joking on social media, like, oh, we should just make t-shirts of this. An hour later, we were on the phone with a designer. We had the designs done and we're like getting ready to be made. I called him again and I was like, hey dude, we've never met before. Like, we're just going to handshake deal this company, right? And he's like, yeah, that's cool. And then, 2 months later, we're finally like getting stuff launched, and pre-orders are coming up this week. And that kind of just rolled into, hey, let's start another business and give the waterfowl community a place to go. And, I'll love to take that into the big game world, but we'll stick to one avenue for now before I get too carried away.
Building blocks.
Oh, love it.
So do you have a team? You said, so you have a business partner in that. Do you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my buddy Derek. He's from Maryland, and we've just been social media pen pals for a bit. And it seemed like a good idea. He's a lot more organized than I am. I'm pretty much scatterbrained all over the darn place. So
you're the visionary. You can use the word for that, visionary.
There we go. Yeah. I like that.
He's the integrator.
Yeah. Oh, we'll take that.
Yeah.
It makes me sound way better than I am.
Make business cards. Keagan Keddell, visionary.
That'd be good.
You
That'd
can.
be good.
How about for the rest of your work? Is it just you?
Yeah, and then I like to call myself a production company at this point, just because I'm subcontracting guys out to do different stuff, whether it's projects that I have that I just can't be there for. You know, if I'm in Alaska and something comes up in Wisconsin, somebody calls me, then I'll sub somebody out for that, or just kind of help them put people in place with different outfitters, different brands. You know, try and spread the wealth on that one. There's so many talented photographers and videographers and content creators out there that just don't have those connections quite yet, and being able to push that into somebody's hands, you know, and make a really good fit. You know, a whitetail company is looking for somebody who's really dialed in on whitetail. Okay, let's put that person in with you, or fishing, or vice versa.
That's awesome.
Well, technically, yes, I'm the only one employed. It feels like there's a lot of webs going on.
You mentioned like getting calls, right, from different places. Like what do they say? Like what are they asking you for? How does that kind of go down?
A lot of the times it's just content. You know, with social media especially, they need so much images, so much pictures, and then just general marketing content continuously that a lot of these companies are struggling to find it. And as soon as they start realizing that they're behind the ball, like especially now with hunting season coming close, all these companies are going to go, oh, crud, we don't have, you know, waterfowl images. Duck season opens in 2 weeks or 3 weeks in Wisconsin. Goose season's already opened. Deer season's opened in North Dakota already. And like all these companies are like panic kind of.
Gotcha.
So people will start calling and trying to look for that. And
is it like, hey, can you come on, like be a fly on the wall for a hunt for this or that, like that type of thing?
There's a lot of that. A lot of like different film projects that are happening. And a lot of it's just, hey, do you have deer pictures? Do you have duck pictures? Do you have that kind of stuff? Some of it's stock imagery, or, hey, we need this product put into this kind of place. I would say it's more that like product placement style work that happens up pretty last minute. Some of the film project stuff is also pretty last minute. I usually throughout hunting season will get 2 or 3 phone calls that are like, hey, can you come film a hunt next week? And I'll be like, yes. You know, I'm in Arizona or Montana. Like, I'm sorry, I can't make that happen in Michigan, kind of deal.
Mm-hmm. So how far in advance do you have to plan stuff like that then? Because, I mean, obviously you have to plan some stuff in advance.
Yeah, you would think that.
Visionary.
Planning's not my specialty. A lot of the problem with hunting season is it's very flexible, right? Like, you take ducks, for example. They're super good. To explain this, like, especially in the South, the duck season might not get good until it's end of January. So if we're planning like a big film project, or we're really trying to make an episode for something that's super good, or content for an outfitter, like, yeah, I can have a day open January 1st through the 7th. But if the birds aren't going to be there and we're not going to be able to accomplish what we're trying to, I'm not going to go waste their time and money and my time and money when I could be in Illinois deer hunting for the last week, or Iowa for the end of muzzleloader season. And kind of just, you know, explain that to clients and kind of go, okay, does it make sense for us to be here right now? Or does it make sense for us to wait? Like, I was supposed to be filming a real estate property here in Montana as a hunting ranch, and I was supposed to be doing that right now, but there's no elk on the property. So those elk are late. You know, typically they're there the first few days of September. We're hoping that they'll be there next week, but I'm not going to go just film the thing as a hunting property if there's no elk to film that are on it.
Sure.
So a lot of my scheduling kind of gets penciled of just like, here's when we think, here's the season, here's kind of what this hunt is, like if it's going to work, great. And then if I've got to audible, I audible. And that's why a lot of times if you see me on a random plane on like a Tuesday, because it's like, hey, it's happening. When can you be here? And I'm like, cool, I'll leave tonight.
That's wild.
You would give so much anxiety to the people that have to have everything planned.
Oh, I absolutely do.
That's like,
absolutely.
I'm like kind of both. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm visionary, but then I'm also very type A.
Yeah. This sounds like right up my alley. Like this is how, it's not to that extent, obviously, but like that's how my life rolls on a daily basis.
Because I was an entrepreneur for what, like 8 years. And so
Roll with the punches.
You have to.
you do. And you're on all the time. You're always on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I would love to know what days off are like.
Right.
But at this point, the idea of a day off kind of gives me more anxiety. Just thinking about how far behind I'd get on everything by taking 24 hours to just not do anything.
So does it still like feel like a day off, or like maybe that's not the best way to put it, but like does it still feel like a job? Like do you still have the love for everything that you started with? Like has it overcome and it feels more like a burden than anything?
It's kind of one of those, it's never felt like a job. Just of the way that I like looked at everything going into it, where like, this is what I do now. So it's just pedal to the floor, go, figure it out as it comes. And it's just like, this is the option. You know, either you're going to make it happen or it's going to fail. And then I'm going to have to figure out how to make it happen still, or on to the next thing. So it's like, I never looked at it going into it as a job. And a lot of that probably comes from guiding, because, you know, I guided for 10 years and that was, you're on all the time, especially Alaska. You know, we were there from May to October, and it was every single day from May to October. You had to be the professional that the clients were expecting, no matter what. Doesn't matter if it was 2 a.m. and you had a couple too many drinks, or if it's 7 a.m. and they've got the biggest rainbow of their life on, or if we're having some bad issue, medical problem in the middle of nowhere, or the boat broke down. Like, it's just, you're on. And that's kind of how I've looked at this, and, you know, how it's worked out for me the last few years. I've just been able to go, okay, yep, this is what we do. This is all we do. So it's more of a lifestyle than a job, really, I guess, is the short version of that answer.
Sure.
So if you're taking vacation, what are you doing? Where are you
Filming
going?
stuff. I'm filming stuff.
Working.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those, like, if I'm going to go do, like, I played in Alaska a bit this summer. You know, it was the first time I'd gone up for a couple years. And I had originally went up to film a show called Roam Wild. And I was there for a few days and then canceled my flight home and was like, oh, cool, I'm just going to spend the summer here. Whatever, I'll figure it out. No big deal. That didn't quite work out that way.
Okay.
But like, that was play. Like, I kind of bummed around and like went and fished for a few days and did some of that stuff, but it still turned into like, I was taking pictures and filming stuff and a little bit more like travel-y stuff and trying to get contacts up there and grow that so that when I go back, like, I have things to do up there. And
Very cool.
was scheming another film project and, you know, just throwing darts at the map.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's awesome.
How do you store and organize all of your content?
So many hard drives.
I asked
So
you about
like
that the other
all
day.
on like actual physical hard drives then?
Holy
Oh,
cow.
okay. Nice.
That was just what was behind me.
Now, how many are in your
there's-
other 3 vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, I think I travel with somewhere between 70 and 100 terabytes of hard drive storage.
Wow.
And then my dad's house back in Wisconsin, I've probably got 300 or 400 terabytes back there that are all full hard drives. And then everything gets double backed up, and that's kind of the bane of my existence, is being able to manage storage, being able to not spend so much money on drives that I'm like not going to be able to eat, but also make sure that everything's functional enough and safe. And
You can just live off
if I
beef
lose-
sticks.
yeah, hey, we'll plug Fatty Smoked Meat Sticks. Absolutely.
Yeah, get sponsored. Is that a sponsor?
Oh, that reminds me. What is your favorite infield snack?
Yeah.
I mean, the Fatty Sticks are honestly like darn good. Otherwise, I could live off gummy worms for sure.
Great answer.
Oh, great answer.
Great answer.
Whenever I go hunting in the
Mike
Badlands,
was like, I just met my best friend.
I already knew that.
You have to.
Yeah, no. Every time I go to the Badlands, though, I stop in this one same gas station and I buy 2 packs of those Albanese gummy bears.
Oh, yeah.
That happens every single time. So it's just
Yeah.
it's a fact.
have
Like
to make room.
I'm not hunting until I stop at that gas station, buy 2 packs of gummy bears.
What if you bought 3?
I mean, I could.
Okay.
I mean, if
I
I'm
just wasn't sure if there
I'm
was, like,
doing an
has
extended
to be
stay,
2.
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
But it's at a minimum of
Minimum
2.
of 2. Got
Yeah,
it.
and I've been known to go back and get more packs of them, but I will always have 2 to start.
Did you know that we
Yeah.
sell those at the store?
Really, I did not know
do?
that.
Look at the tummy of the bear. There's an A. Just saying.
That's dangerous to know
Ooh.
now. Speaking of junk food, though, it's the opposite
Junk
of junk food. But like, you had mentioned on your story a couple times that I'd seen like trying to eat healthy while on the road. Like, how hard is that to do?
I mentioned that particularly because I would love people to realize that it's not that hard to eat healthy on the road. I got some really bad stomach issues my first year in Alaska, so I kind of got forced into being the person that reads labels, that realizes what's in food and pays attention, and then I have to eat a certain way. It's a giant pain in the butt when I'm traveling to hunting lodges, but if I'm on the back of my truck and I have my Coleman cook stove and my couple pans, it's super easy to be able to eat, fresh food, whether that's vegetables or chicken or beef or whatever. I throw a bunch of stuff in the back, throw some ice in there, and then I'm good for a week or 2 off grid. And it's little things like picking up a can of green beans that doesn't have, 500 milligrams of sodium in it and has, is just green beans and water, and being selective on those things and kind of getting creative, knowing that I live out of a variety of trucks, that I may not be in that place for 2 weeks. I may not be with that food. So trying to think about not being wasteful, and that's where canned stuff is great. Dried fruits and stuff like that is also an easy solution. And that stuff that I can take out into the field with me too. And, I've been known to cook anywhere and everywhere, if that's a truck stop in South Dakota or, the back of my Suburban up in the mountains or down south, really just having the means to make food. You can do whatever you need to, and it's not that hard. It doesn't take any longer. As much as I travel, if I ate fast food all the time, I'd A, be 300 pounds, and B, would just go broke with how expensive food is.
Mm-hmm.
Or just be eating off the dollar menu when I could be eating, ribeyes that I got on sale at Walmart for the same price.
I was gonna say, what's an example of something that you would throw on the Coleman stove, if you just pull off at a truck stop, like you were saying, what's a meal that you'd have?
A lot of the times it's a couple green, orange, or red peppers, an onion, and then chicken or beef or pork, whatever, and then a little bit of rice, and can kind of cook all that stuff in the same pan, and then all of a sudden bam, here's a decent meal, and then get back on the road.
Nice.
Reminds me of my bodybuilding days.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like
I'd stop at many gas stations and go and cook my sweet potatoes or rice or whatever in their microwave.
there you go.
Or I learned to eat my food cold.
Yeah, that's weird. I haven't gotten to that point yet.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do it. Yeah.
But it really doesn't take that much more time. That's good to know.
Well, and yeah, like you said, that stomach issues and stuff. Once you start looking at these labels, I mean, I'm into nutrition, so
This is the rabbit hole.
This is
I feel like we could go down 10.
We went
billion
from
rabbit
gummy
holes with you,
bears,
Keagan.
gummy worms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, we all know somebody that loves to hunt and fish, that's out of shape and overweight and doesn't take care of themselves, that can't go do the things that we all know that we love to do, and that can't do the things that they dream of. So taking care of ourselves every day, knowing that it's going to be hunting season, it's going to be fishing season, and being limited is going to be awful. So by doing the little things and continuing to eat healthy on the road and stay in shape and working out as much as you can, those things geared towards wanting to be able to hunt and fish for as long as we can is what keeps me going, and kind of why I like to post that stuff on my story, like you said, of just here, think about it, be active, be thinking about it, and then know that when I call you and say, hey, I've got an extra elk tag in Montana, come on, we're going to go up the mountains, that it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do for your fitness out there?
I do a lot of workouts that are all pack oriented. the First Form app that I use has a bunch of different pack workouts, and I just throw a 45-pound plate in my Mystery Ranch pack, and then I use that for pretty much everything from, it's rucks and throwing it around and that kind of stuff. And the Mystery Ranch surprisingly held up super good over the last year of getting absolutely abused, but it's a lot of that. And then it's just general being active and hiking. And you start to think about what all you can use to lift weights or just calisthenics and that kind of stuff. It's really not super hard. And then I have a gym membership that I mainly bought because I like to shower when I'm on the road. So the gym is a good place
I was
to
gonna say,
do that.
which gym did you get a membership
I got a
to? In the
sauna,
Yeah, just the Planet Fitness, and then that's if I'm going there to shower, then get a quick workout in and do that. But a lot of times I'm not somewhere that if I'm up in the mountains or if I'm in the BFE in Iowa, like you just kind of make it happen however you got to.
And you're being active anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Super active, yeah.
That's a fantastic concept. Yeah, bought a gym membership so I can shower. But yeah, I mean it makes total sense. I love it. What do you have coming up for this fall?
It's always an interesting one. I know I'm probably going back down to Arizona for elk season. My hunting season started last week with mule deer. I'll have some Montana big game and probably a little bit of the Dakotas as well for waterfowl season. Iowa, I usually end up for whitetail season. I'll sneak into Wisconsin a little bit for that as well. Ducks, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, trying to work Texas in there, probably a few more Midwestern states. And then at some point I got to get back up to Alaska. I'm not sure if that's happening or kind of what the deal is. Once again, everything's pretty fluid.
It's all penciled in, not penned in.
Yeah, very vaguely penciled. Like if you look at it too fast, you won't see it kind of penciled.
Nice.
But,
so you filmed with Lee and Tiffany last year, right?
Yep. I've helped produce their show for parts of the last 3 seasons.
Nice. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Oh, that's a absolute riot. They're some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. As I always tell people, as nice as they seem on TV, they're nicer in person, which is pretty unique for the outdoor industry. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good people, but they're super awesome. And then just being able to get to go and experience a lot of stuff. Like the first whitetail that I ever filmed was Tiffany's a couple years ago. And we're doing all the grip and grin stuff and taking pictures, and she kind of smirks and looks at me and goes, "I bet this is the biggest whitetail that you've ever filmed, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Tiffany, this is the only whitetail I've ever filmed."
So yes,
and her and Lee kind of look at each other, look at me, and they're like, "Oh boy." And it was good, but it was just funny. It's like, getting thrown into stuff constantly and being able to put in the days. And, I lost count of how many days that I spent in tree stand in the last few years, but it's a lot. So
are you ever hunting to fill your own tags too, for the most part, or is it always just filming other people's hunts and things like that?
It's, for the most part, it's everybody else's. I don't feel like I'm at the point where I can let off the gas enough to be able to put the time and the effort that I want into my own tags. If I draw a Western elk tag, I'm not filming for that month. If it's archery season, I'm going to hunt until what I want and do it the way that I want it to. Will it still also probably be filmed anyway? Yeah, but not the point. But that's just, the last couple of years I've done Wisconsin rifle season just because that's where I grew up. Rifle season in Wisconsin, as you guys know, is a holiday. So try and make it home for that for a few days. And then, I'll shoot a handful of ducks because I always buy a license, whatever state that I'm filming in, just in case something goofy happens, especially with federal birds. I don't want to have any issues with the warden. Right. So I just buy a license. And usually if, we've got time or I'm there for a couple weeks, I'll shoot a couple ducks and that's about it.
Nice.
What's your favorite animal to go after?
That's my least favorite question because they're also neat in and of their own way. I think stalking archery antelope is super cool. They're a crazy critter. just the ability to get in super close to something that can be so smart and so dumb at the same time is a blast. Elk are crazy. There's nothing like getting screamed at 15 yards by a bull. Like, that is just enough to make anybody an addict. I think mule deer are cool in their own right. Glassing them is kind of fun. And then waterfowl obviously are like just whatever you want it to be and whatever species you want, and target it in any environment across the country, or target the same species in a bunch of different environments throughout the year. So it's kind of one of those, I love all of them for their own little thing. Like, I couldn't ever pick one and just go, this is what I do now. Like, I do all of these things all at once.
Do you have, like you said, different environments, but like, do you have a different a favorite way to film things? Like, would you rather, like, if it's, prime rut or something like that, like late November, would you rather film like a whitetail hunt, or like go film a honey duck hole or something like that? Like, is there, like, would you prefer one area over the other, like, to film things?
I mean, yeah, if it's prime rut for whitetails, like, sign me up.
Yeah.
There's nothing cooler than rattling in a like big mature whitetail. Like, watching that sneak through the woods and, chasing and doing all that is awesome. But there's only, a couple weeks that you can do that. Mm-hmm. Where duck season, you have really good duck hunting for a lot of the year, just depending on where you're at in that migration. So, like, yeah, I'm going to pick whitetail because I know it's 1 week, 2 weeks of like, holy cow, this is super good. And then I'll get back to duck hunting.
Nice.
Makes sense.
If you were to pick one piece of content that you were most proud of, what would it be?
It's probably another one of your least favorite questions.
Let's go back to the gummy worm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that being able to tell stories of animals specifically that everybody just looks at but doesn't really get to see, like duck dogs are probably the answer to that. Just because everybody sees the dog in the blind, they see it retrieving birds, but when you can take that picture or that video and stop that moment in time and let somebody really look at it and really see that like emotion and the character in the dog's eyes and that drive and that passion, it's something that people are seeing, but they're not really seeing until you actually like have that picture in front of you. And then you go, holy cow, like, look at all of these things that are going on in one split second of time.
Mm-hmm. That's what gravitated me to your work, is seeing those dog photos and seeing like their emotions in their eyes. Mm-hmm. Like you can basically just put yourself into that situation or imagine that. And that's something that's really special.
Yeah. And it's just fun because they're such an ordinary animal. I mean, we've seen dogs all the time for our whole lives. And then being able to like go, holy cow, like that's not just a lab. That's a dog that loves what it's doing right now. It's at its perfect spot in time. Like, that's where, I don't know, I just fell in love with doing a lot of this and telling those stories through that.
I think it kind of brings it back to like why you even started and showing the firefighters in your local community, like a picture's worth 1,000 words, so like here's these photos. So seeing it in those animals and in the dogs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very cool.
I got to nerd out for a second. What do you use for equipment? I know there's a bunch of it, but like, what's your main stuff?
Yeah, I film on a Sony FX3, and then I shoot pictures on Nikons.
Okay.
Mainly my Nikon Z8. The FX3 for footage is probably the best of the best for what it is that I do and the way that I operate, especially being so run and gun and traveling constantly. Having a smaller package is really helpful. And then I like the way that the Nikons take pictures. And it's what I've always shot is Nikon. So I've just stuck with that. It's kind of inconvenient switching back and forth, but it allows me to have just a film camera and then just a picture camera. So when I'm out in the field and I've got my film camera set up on the tripod, doing whatever we need to do, I can still be snapping pictures and kind of working around that. And then when it's time to click record, I can just set my picture camera on the side of my cotton carrier and off we go.
Yeah, that's nice.
Very cool.
Have you ever had any near-death experiences doing this out in the field?
Not really. Thankfully, I've been pretty lucky. You know, I've been in a couple opportunities that we could have had plane crashes. That was up in Alaska when I was still guiding, but you know, those ended up not being too bad. Pilots are usually pretty good at avoiding those circumstances. I've had a lot of what other people would probably think are near-death experiences with bears, but nothing that really was anything super bad. Honestly, I've kind of gotten pretty lucky for my own personal stuff. I've been to a couple plane crashes up in Alaska and helped like get people out and take care of that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, we're knock on wood. Yeah, still doing pretty good here.
I have a connection up in Alaska. I'll have to connect you with. I can't remember where
awesome.
they're at, but Trailbreaker Kennel. I don't know if you've ever been to any of those places, but it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to get up to Alaska.
I was up to Alaska once, and now I'm like reliving it through you, and I'm like, it's incredible.
That's on my bucket list place for sure.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I was wondering to myself how long it was going to take for Allie to pitch, or for Ashley to pitch that. Oh, I was up in Alaska.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean,
it's hard not to.
Gosh,
yeah, it's still on my bucket list, and I get jealous every single time it comes up.
Yeah,
I'll get there sooner or later.
Did I mention I was to Alaska? Just kidding.
All right. Well, Keagan, thank you so much for your time. So many amazing stories, and
absolutely,
yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Keep us updated on your Instagram stories because we'll be watching.
We'll be following.
As usual.
And
I'll do my best.
Plug, if you ignored me the first time, make sure to hit pause on this one now and go follow Keagan at Wildlife Photog Media. It's an adventure. You never know what you're going to see on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Some amazing photography and video, though. That's for sure.
Whatever
Guaranteed.
you see, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
That's all I can guarantee.